Hi, I'm Karen.
I'm Clark.
And welcome back to the Film Race series. Today we're going to be talking with Clark about the 72 Film Fest. First thing I want to know is just tell us, what is the 72 Film Fest?
So it's a film competition, 72 hours, so people have a full weekend from Thursday to Sunday to make a movie, and it's based around different criteria. Every team gets a different criteria around a theme that is sort of individual for each year. They kind of started out with just this idea of what can we inspire a team to do and not give them like really specific kind of criteria that they have to hit. You know, I think that most people like to have some sort of sense of structure to it when they're making the film. So it's kind of an interesting approach, I think, that a team has to take, because they could either be very literal in the adaptation, or they can kind of take it, maybe do a deep dive on that subject and then kind of break it down.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, did you guys start 72 Fest in response to something like the 48-hour film project, or were there other film competitions, like timed film competitions going on that inspired you?
There was a contest prior to us. There was a film festival called Frederick Festival Film prior to us, and I think they had like an open board meeting, like, hey, come out if you have ideas. And so I went there because I had just finished a feature film with Pepe Sankara. We both went, and then I met Joey McAdams, who I actually formed Full Martyr with, and he's a big part of 72 as well. And while we were there in that meeting, we sort of recommended, hey, why don't you do like a contest, you know? And we wanted them to do it so we could compete, really, more than anything. So they took that idea and then ran with it, and they did it for 3 years, and we were sort of like on the board, but shut out of everything to deal with the contest. So we could, compete and not have it be, any kind of conflict of interest or anything. But and they very much did kind of similar. It was I think a prop, which was the Frederick News Post, I believe, and then they would do like lines of dialogue and characters and things like that. So it was similar, and I think I just wanted it to be different than that. I didn't want to just copy that. So I guess in a lot of ways it was not copying the previous fest, because when that ended, which it ended I think in the spring of 2006 or something like that, I didn't want it to go away, the contest to go away. So it was me and then another team that had won the previous year were like, hey, let's save it. And so that's how 72 came about. We threw it together in like 5 months and had our own fest. The other thing is, since we had done a contest before, we sort of understood it from the filmmaker side. And basically everybody on the long-term team of 72 has competed in these kinds of fests before. So we sort of understand it from that side. So we kind of wanted to, and a little bit play with the filmmakers somewhat.
How has the 72 Film Fest evolved and changed over the years?
I think over the years it's been this sort of give and take a little bit with the filmmakers, trying to figure out what they want out of the fest. Big evolution, I think, of the fest was trying to help folks get their projects off the ground, which is where LEDA came from and where Black Hills Night Hike came from, and everything is just not just providing this one weekend, but trying to inspire people to create outside of that weekend. I do think 72 is a great training ground, and it's a great way of meeting each other. I've seen teams, break up and form new teams from the people that they've met, and things like that. And I've seen films getting made, shorts and features, along the way. So I think somewhat I think it's a good training ground, and also a good just practice, because it's instant gratification. You have one weekend, and the next weekend you show your movie and get an instant feedback. I think that goes a long way, because the normal process of filmmaking is just very slow and methodical.
Yeah, that's really true. So this is great because it has the instant gratification like you're talking about, but it also has the built-in audience, right. And that's huge. And what else is really cool that you guys do a little bit differently than some other fests we've seen is the awards ceremony. When did you start doing it that way? What made you decide to do that instead of just handing out certificates? Yeah. Or
we were giving awards from the beginning, but it wasn't with the nominees and things like that, it's a full ceremony. It's 20, 30 minutes long, I think. We have people get up on stage and thank and stuff like that at the very end. In the beginning, it was just all one long thing, one Friday night, 4.5 hours or something like that. And we were oof, we need to break it up. So, but how do we get people to come to both nights? And so that's where the Saturday night content came from, because it's you can come and watch the movies again, but you need to give something else, I think. So then it became this kind of fun little thing that we did with the hosts. And then I think that's cool too, because it gives the filmmakers grounding, something that takes them through the night. I think the Saturday night's interesting because that's what the judges move on. So Those are typically like the finalists and the award winners, and there's at least the ones the judges deem as the best for that year. And then it's much easier to sort of swallow that in like an hour and a half to 2 hour chunk than the big 5 hour. Making sure we get that part right makes everything feel big. Like someone called it like the Oscars of Frederick or something, and we were like, oh, okay.
It feels like it. That's
Yeah.
the closest thing I think for this area that you would find for something like that. And it's unlike any other festival I've gone to, whether it's a film race, competition, or just a regular festival. I don't know that I've ever seen another festival that does that cares that much about the award ceremony. Is there anything else that makes the 72 Film Fest different from other like film competitions that we haven't covered already?
I mean, the main one I think is just everything plays in the one night is the big one, I think. And then the criteria is specific to the team, which can be a blessing and a curse, because some years the criteria is vastly different between the teams. The year that we did Hollywood mashups, which was like you pick 2 different VHSs and then you have to mash them together. Like,
oh yeah, I heard about
this
that.
movie meets this movie. Like some of them I think had a challenge of. I always use the term, the one that was Home Alone meets Terminator, which sounds like perfect. I mean, Hollywood should make that tomorrow, But that team had a heck of a lot of pressure to make a good movie. Everyone's like, oh, I got that one,
Iconic movies to try and live up to, for sure.
I remember there was one year where 2 teams came up, and it was so funny because the one team came up, if I only had that, and the other team came up and said, if I only had that. And I'm like, I mean, I could flop you, but...
But then you open a whole can of worms.
Yeah. The only time we've ever done that is Script Fest, where we actually allowed people like 10 minutes to trade scripts because we knew it was going to be contentious. Giving people a script, and if they didn't like it or if they couldn't pull it off, because you may not have the right amount of actors and those kinds of things.
Was that part of 72 Fest?
Mm-hmm.
Or okay, was that one of the themes the one year?
Yeah, that was 2012.
Was it like Wall Street after that? Like, I've got this, who wants this?
Yeah, it was funny. I don't know how many minutes we allowed, but yeah, people were running around, and of course they had to read the scripts.
Yeah.
So they had to trade, and like, no, I don't like that one. So then they would go on to somebody else, and concept-wise was really fun, but
a lot of pressure though.
For people, yeah.
You guys have kind of an impressive roster of teams that have come back for 10 or more years. Are there any teams that have been there the whole time?
There are people that have been there the whole time, or at least most of the whole time. Yeah. But no team has done it like as that team every year. But there are multiple people that have been there since year 1 or year 2, and they've sort of come in and out of other teams.
What's that feel like to have so many teams that want to just keep coming back?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. Yeah, it's exciting. It's also exciting just to watch, like, because you can think of a team and then try to imagine what year. Okay, so what year was that? Okay, what year did they do like this movie? And it kind of just grounds everything.
We're really fortunate that we get to be part of this filmmaking community, because it is a really cool filmmaking community. You know, we're on the East Coast and. Not necessarily known for its filmmaking, but there's just a really cool group of people here that like making some awesome films. So.
There's quite a few. I mean, I wish they weren't so siloed. It feels
sure.
I feel like there's a lot of them that don't. They're sort of aware of each other, but they don't really kind of mingle as much as they should. But
is that part of the reason you did the podcast, where you have teams meet up, is because you're kind of trying to make those connections?
Yeah, the podcast, and then also I guess we're doing the filmmaker meetups now, and just trying to get that, because I feel like a lot of teams already do that at the launch and at the fest, but there's so much pressure to get the movie done, you're kind of not really paying attention to that, and there's the competitive edge at that point too, and it doesn't happen as much as it could.
Okay, so what is the judging process like? How do you pick the judges? How does it all happen?
We change it every year a little bit. There's always a tweak. So if I'm talking about it like recently, I guess. But the judges are in 2 rounds. There's the cut, which essentially is the first round of judges will watch the movies and then kind of determine the 18 or 20 that'll be considered for awards. And then that gets moved over to the second round judges. The second round judges typically have sort of specializations in skills. So they'll either be a writer or a cinematographer or an editor. And when they score, the first round judges will score essentially overall, and they might score one other thing like criteria usage or something else. And it's all point based. And then the second round judges will do overall, but they'll also do their skill. And so some judges have 1 skill, some judges have more skills depending on what they kind of do in their like professional life and such. And then then after that, it's just math, just a lot of math. So we have formulas that kind of total up the columns, total up the overall or the scales to try to determine the individual awards. And then we have I think the confusing part for folks that we have to sort of clarify is there's best pro, best student, and best amateur, and then there's also best of the fest. And a lot of folks don't get it when best of the fest isn't one of those three. Overall, best of the fest is sort of determined by this ranking system. So when second round judges, we ask them what's your favorite movie, your second favorite movie, and your third favorite movie. And then we apply points to that. And then that gets sort of crunched, and that's how best of the fest is determined. Whereas the other ones are typically a column total of the overall that they grade. So a lot of times judges will have an affinity towards a movie and they maybe scored it a little bit less than another movie. And that's how that kind of happens. Yeah, that's the gist. And the judges we just kind of go around and ask folks that we know either around here or in the general area with the various different skills that we have. Mostly we know that aren't going to compete or haven't competed or won't compete again kind of thing. We don't want it to kind of be someone that would be maybe rotating in and out of competing. The same thing, that's how we do our board too. We don't really want people coming on and then going and competing later, which limits us a lot because a lot of the folks locally would rather compete than help.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at. I'd love to help, but I would much rather compete.
Yeah, nobody wants to retire. I mean, Mike and Shay used to compete before they retired and helped, so yeah, so it was nice that they came on, but I think some years they regret that they did that.
Actually, speaking of Mike and Shay, can you tell me a little bit about your team and what are the different roles?
We have the core team that we have that we work with each year, and then sometimes they might take off a year or whatever, but it's mostly the same folks that have done it for a while. Tim was part of the team that Jason was in the very beginning, so he volunteered from the get-go, and he helped with registration and helps with a lot of the admin stuff. And he came on board, I think, big time in after I think year 6, because year 5 I tried to do it mostly by myself and failed. I feel like I'm just an agent of chaos, and if I don't have that to ground me, then it might work out. That's basically it might not. And then Mike and Shay does a lot of the artwork, especially most recently she'll do she sent some of the Clue artworks out, and she'll decorate the launch party. She did a little bit of the social media some years. And Mike is very much about that presentation of the night, so he'll get the team bumps together and the award ceremony and everything. So that's cool. Yeah, she did that. Yeah, that was the profession year.
It's not just a drawing, it's pieced together with pieces of paper kind of ripped, and it looks like a paper doll. These are some of the coolest awards we've ever gotten from any film festival. So tell me why, how, all the things.
So the very first few years we had someone named Rebecca Bartlett. She did they were very they had a lot of character. Best of the Fest was literally a Barbie with a nail through her foot into a slab of wood. Okay. It was they were pretty rough. And we have so many pictures where someone will take the award off the stage and the thing just fall apart as they're leaving. Sure. So it's just funny. We leaned into that, but then at some point we were maybe we should
something a little sturdier.
Maybe something that'll last longer. So then we found Roland Metal Art, and I was oh, this is perfect. And we reached out to them, and we thought we were just going to basically buy pre-made ones, but he really liked the idea and everything, so he tailors them to us. So if it's an acting one, and he'll tailor it to the theme as well. So there's every one of them has these little flourishes that he adds, which is fantastic.
Yeah, they're all really cool, and they're made out of old railroad ties. Is that right? Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Which makes them very sturdy and heavy.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
How quick does he make these then?
We usually talk to them somewhere around in August or the end of July, and then he'll have them ready for us. I'm not sure how long it takes him though.
Do you use the same award categories each year, or do you mix it up?
So we do kind of, I guess, similar to Oscars, where it's best. Best of the Best is Best Picture. Then we have Best Writing, Acting, which we just do one acting. We're actually adding supporting acting this year, I think. Writing, acting, cinematography, music and sound separate, because not a lot of folks do music, but more folks are doing music now.
Do you have people let you know if they did original music? Okay, so that's
Yeah, never best directing. I think the problem would be is I don't know how to judge it, just because I don't know how I think it would just double up with best film. I don't know that it would have that much of a difference for the way that it gets judged.
Directing and editing can also kind of get mixed up with what was good directing, what was what was put together in the edit bay.
Oh yeah,
you know.
I mean, even acting to some extent. Like, yeah. I think a lot of times the filmmakers will kind of grade their film on the reaction or the judges, and I'm like, but did you have fun? To me, that's like the most important thing, more so than any of the other stuff, because I think that a lot of times the filmmakers they'll hear something, or they don't get a laugh, or they want to get a laugh, or those kinds of things, and it kind of bugs. I mean, we're obviously like that too. The Weinberg's a big place too. So like, even if depending on where you're sitting, you may not hear the laughs. Even if there are laughs.
Or they might be more like smirks.
Right? Yeah.
That stuff.
Which I think that's most of our stuff is just a big, like, these crazy guys, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of filmmakers are introverts, so they're not going to just laugh out loud.
Yeah, they're not going to go fall.
I guess, what do you see for other film festivals like this, like that are timed competitions? Do you see more popping up? Do you think that they're going to kind of go away? Or do you think people are going to that they'll always be craving some sort of like deadline like this?
I mean, I think the deadlines help a lot. I mean, I know there's been this stuff that's popped up and around, but it's a lot of work to pull them off, and there's just a lot of like codec things and stuff. It's gotten a lot easier. I mean, just like filmmaking, year one was way different than it is now. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a lot easier, even though people push themselves really hard now. But for the most part, ingesting footage and exporting footage is way easier than it was, and the technology to play this stuff is way easier now. Yeah, I mean, I think people, for the most part, need that deadline is to get friends and family involved, because I think that seems to be what happens a lot is the teams are sort of like, are you ready for the weekend? Are you ready for this weekend? But then if they try to do a short outside of that, it's like the energy is just, it's so hard to get it up to that.
Yeah, because why would you push through if you can just go to bed? Right?
Yeah, right.
It's like
yeah, exactly.
If a filmmaker was debating whether to do the fest or not, what would you tell them?
Yeah, just do it, right? I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's one of the best parts of the fest, I think, for a lot of people. It's just like a reunion. Like, folks have moved on. I know there's a couple teams that have essentially moved across country or whatever, so this is the time when they get together and they do something, and that's like, I don't know, that's pretty cool on our part. Like, we that's the thing that kind of tickles us, I guess.
Yeah, brings people together.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's true though. Even people that are local. For us, there's just some people we generally don't see them except when we're doing a film race, and when we tell them we're doing competition, they're like, I'm there. Like, even if we give them last minute notice, a lot of times they are on board. And a lot of these people they're not even filmmakers,
right?
For their day job. But
yeah, I think that's what a lot of teams are. A lot of teams are they just try it one year and then they're hooked, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie that you have done over in a race?
Oh man. For the 72, I would say Capsule. That was a huge undertaking to build a whole spaceship.
Yeah. Did you know going in?
Brian wanted to do a space movie.
Okay.
That's all we knew. We didn't have anything even like set aside for doing a spaceship. The only like recon we did was like to go to, because it was, near Halloween time. Yeah. We just went to a costume store to see if they even had a spacesuit or a space helmet or something. So that was like the only kind of pre-work we did. We didn't buy anything. We were just like, okay, they have it in case we do a space movie.
Those nights they mean a lot, to folks, because it is the one time they can definitely get their movies seen at the Weinberg in a big audience. And it's just, it's a special, both nights are special, but I think Friday night to me there's like an electricity to it, because everyone's so nervous. They don't know if they're going to move on, they don't know where their movie's playing. They don't know how their movie's going to get, how the audience is going to take their movie, all that stuff. And especially the first time filmmakers or whatever, because then it's like the very first time you show something in front of people, there's like this, almost sick feeling in your stomach kind of thing. And so it's just, you got all that into one. And then you have the competitive people, hoping they win this year or whatever. So then you have this whole massive mix of folks under the same roof, and there's something real magical about that.
So what's your favorite type of movie or genre that you really look forward to watching every year?
I mean, I gravitate towards anything that's sort of mysterious, obviously, because I think the clues kind of give that away. But yeah. Here's the type of movie you should make. For the record, I don't judge. So
what's your ideal movie, though?
Yeah. I don't judge, so it's not going to help. But I think each year it's something different, because I think that some years, I don't know what it is about, if it's the criteria or the themes or whatever, but a lot of times we'll get teams making kind of very similar films. And so like whatever bucks that is usually what sticks out, because like, oh wait, no one, like this one's a fresh one this year. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to kind of predict that, as a filmmaker going in. We sort of had the challenge to make a horror film, but I think a lot of folks were like, oh, I'm going to counter program, I'm going to do a comedy, and then my movie will stand out, and then like everybody did comedies. A lot of teams like to tell a 9-minute story in a 7-minute film, and I think that's the hardest part for teams to get, is like, you got 7 minutes to tell a 7-minute story, or better yet, tell a 6-minute story. Like, get it to the point where you can get a full arc without having to cut down and then lose emotional beats and things like that.
Because you don't have a minimum time, right?
No, you can be as short as you want. Yeah.
Like a 30-second film if you want.
And we even encourage now where you have a best film under 5 minutes to sort of encourage folks to go down. That way it's like, I guess it's kind of low stakes. You can shoot for it, but if you go over, it's not terrible.
You need one setup and knockdown, not a whole like 3-act structure.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I think is unique that you guys do is the way that you have people pick their criteria for that year. Mm-hmm. Pulling out of like a bin that you couldn't see into that was a little bit creepy, or pulling the job, the time card and you got a job. Like that was super fun. Yeah. Or pointing a laser pointer at a star and getting
constellations. We sort of all the thematic elements that we have and what can we just kind of push forward. Another one where we had a keyboard and you had to dip your finger in blood and then press the keyboard. What? Yeah, and then that one was, the poster actually has a bloody keyboard, and I think Sam maybe worked on that one, and we don't know why he put a bloody keyboard on it, but from that we were like, wait, we could just do that for the criteria picking. That's and it made it seem like it was all planned.
We'll look forward to the future and all the creative ways you guys come up with to pick movies and the different themes.
We'll do it as long as folks want to come out to do it. Like, I don't know who on the team will stick around as we do it, but I mean, it's one of those things where we always sort of said that as long as folks want to do it, we'll keep it going and just evolve as we sort of need to. We're kind of at that point where we can't really have that many more teams on a Friday night, so if we do grow bigger, we have to sort of change the structure of the fest, which would then maybe jeopardize the feeling of the fest. So we've always just, we don't really put the brakes on 50 teams, but we do kind of like, well, I don't know if we need to advertise now that we're close to 50, kind of thing, which that might kind of prevent us from getting, bigger, but we kind of like the feeling of Friday night.
The online part of it is interesting. Like, you could potentially grow there, and you were talking about how you might not even do that part of it this year, but
yeah, I mean, that's because we had the most in the COVID year. Like, I don't know what it was. Part of it was we reduced the price a lot because we wanted to make sure people could participate. Okay. So we got a lot more people participating, but also I think there was just nothing going on.
One thing that you guys do that's different than some other fests I've seen is you require everyone to like post a picture of them making a film every day. Yeah,
I think the main reason is this is our sort of semi-proof element, but we basically give some folks stuff on at the launch party, whether that's their criteria or whether it's something else, and ask them to take a picture on the set. So at least it, if you are cheating, it's pretty extensive cheating. At least make them work for it. And also it ties them together with social media, because I think you get to see what everybody else is doing, and then also you get like, oh, that's that team. Oh, that's who that team is, because you see the actors or you see who's behind the scenes, and you kind of can connect. And I think it's another way to get folks to connect with each other more than really anything else,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Clark, for coming today. This has been a wealth of information. I think anyone watching will learn a ton about the 72 Fest and how it works. So thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Film Race series.